Grouping method is another way of factoring, particularly when we have four terms to deal with. First, let's look this first case here. So 3x squared times 2x minus 1 minus 5 times 2x minus 1. So if we wanted to factor that, something that could help is if I just wrote this another way on the side here of what if I had 3x squared, instead of writing out that 2x minus 1, let's say I just called that a. And then minus 5 times a again. So my greatest common factor here would be that value of a. So what I would do is factor out that a, and then in parentheses I would have 3x squared left over minus 5. So factoring is kind of reversing that distributive property. Like right now, what I would do is if I wanted to simplify, I would distribute a and then simplify, and that would just bring me back to the beginning. But this is the factored form that I want to get here. So with that is identifying that common factor. So what's happening here with the 2x minus 1 is our common factor is this entire expression 2x minus 1. And this entire expression 2x minus 1 all in the parentheses. So like I did off to the side here of factoring out a, I want to factor out this 2x minus 1. So what I would do is bring it out front. So I'd have parentheses 2x minus 1. And then in the parentheses where I collect those leftovers, or if I thought about dividing by this entire expression 2x minus 1 divided by 2x minus 1, what I would have left over is 3x squared minus 5. So this is just to show that in factoring and taking out a common factor, if it's contained in parentheses and it's exactly the same, so these are both 2x minus 1, that can be a common factor that's brought out front, and then we just think about that division for collecting what's inside there. So this is a tool we're going to use as part of the grouping method. So, factoring by grouping. Let's say we have four terms like this. What we do is we create two groups. What we're going to do is, and what helps to visualize is that we have four terms here. We have these first two terms and these second two terms. And what we're going to do is only focus on two at a time. So I'm going to draw a line right there. In fact, if it even helps, you could use your hand to cover up the part of the paper. We're just going to ignore what's on the right-hand side. I'm just going to focus on that x to the fourth minus x cubed. So I'm going to think about what's my greatest common factor there. In this case, x cubed will be my greatest common factor, and I'm going to factor it out. So I'm going to have x cubed, and in parentheses, that'll leave me with 1x, and then minus x cubed divided by x cubed would just be a 1. And then I'd have my parentheses. So that's half of the work. What I'm going to do next is look at the right-hand side. So kind of like we did before, I'm going to ignore what's on the left-hand side and just focus on the right. Think about what's my greatest common factor here. And it's going to be a positive 2. So I'm going to write positive 2. Be sure the symbol comes with it, positive or negative. And then in parentheses, well, 2x divided by 2 will leave us with x. And then negative 2 divided by 2 is a negative 1. So with that, by looking at the groupings, these two separate groupings, we're able to get out these greatest common factors in these separate groups. And now what I have is a scenario similar to what we were looking at the beginning here, where we have this entire expression as a common factor. In this case, the expression that's the common factor is this whole x minus 1 and this whole x minus 1. So I'm going to factor out x minus 1, so I'll go to the front here. And then in parentheses, I'll have my leftovers from dividing out the x minus 1 from each of the terms. Again, in terms of the terms, the separator is this addition here. So addition, subtraction separate the terms. There is subtraction in here, but think of it as grouped by those parentheses. So our big separation of terms is that addition there. So we divide out that x minus 1, so that'll leave us with x cubed. Divide out the x minus 1 from the second term, and that'll leave us with positive 2. So what we end up with is multiplication of expressions. You want to double check that inside there aren't any common factors left over that need to be factored out. And what you can always do is check your answer. You can always check by foiling it out. So x minus 1 times x cubed plus 2. So if I FOIL, so x times x cubed, in fact, let's review foiling. So I'll have x times x cubed multiplying the first terms. Outer terms, x times positive 2. Inner terms, negative 1 times x cubed. And then last terms, negative 1 times positive 2. So what we would end up with is x to the 4th plus 2x minus x cubed minus 2. And the order changed a little bit, but overall, it's the same expression as we started with. So we want the factored form, which is our answer here with the multiplication, but you can always check by foiling it back out. Okay, let's do this 2 more times here. So I'm going to draw a line down the middle so I have these groupings of 2 terms. So on the left-hand side, my common factor will be y. So I can factor out y. So with that, again, I'm visualizing, I'm going to divide out a y and divide out a y. So that'll leave me with 2 times x plus 1y. And on the left-hand side, for a common factor, so since the leading term is negative, my common factor will be negative. Then there's nothing numerical, and there aren't even variables that are the same. So all I'm really going to be taking out is a negative 1. So we're essentially going to be dividing by negative 1, divide by negative 1. So that'll make a positive 2x and a positive y. So now in this form, I can see my common factor of that 2x plus y, 2x plus y. So I'm going to factor out 2x plus y. And when we divide out 2x plus y from each of these terms, we'll have a y left over and a negative 1 left over. And that'll be our factored form. All right, last example here. We're going to cut a line down the middle there. On the left-hand side, we'll have a common factor of x. So again, I'm thinking about divide out an x, divide out an x. So that'll leave us with x cubed minus 4. On the right-hand side, we'll have a positive 3 as a common factor. So I'm going to divide out a 3, divide out a 3. And that'll leave us with an x cubed minus 4. So with that, we have this common factor of x cubed minus 4 that we can factor out to the front here. And then in terms of what's left over, we'll have an x plus 3. So that's our factoring by grouping.